Yo, welcome back to the Stuff Whatever podcast. Your host BQuanchi here. We have a very special stream this week, but before we get started, I always like to say the best way to support me and the channel is to like, comment, and subscribe. Which you can do on YouTube, follow on Twitter for fun tweets and updates. Also, we tweet fun stuff or stuff I find funny too, so it's a fun little thread or whatever. And then there's always Twitch where you can catch me gaming and all that. Those gaming VODs do get uploaded back here on the YouTube channel, BQuanchi, all around. You can find those links on either about, descriptions of videos, all that. So I just got back from vacation. It was a nice little time. And I said in previous ones that I was going to take a little hiatus and break from a podcast. I did do one before this one, but I feel like I'm going to do one more in the meantime. Just because I have some stuff I want to talk about and whatever. It just feels like I'm just some dumb guy with a microphone yelling to the void. So I probably won't do it on a regular basis quite yet. Some of the things like if I wish I had more of an audience, more interaction, or kind of more to riff off of, even with streaming too. So I appreciate, checking out the streams and VODs and all that. Because sometimes I forget, to be entertaining, especially when I'm streaming and stuff like that. But sometimes I've been having fun with it, even if there's no one's watching, I don't know, you have a different mentality when you're streaming or broadcasting versus playing games, in private time. And speaking of streaming as well, I'm probably going to stream a little bit more just because there's more stuff I want to play. And sometimes it feels like a little bit of a chore. I don't go too crazy with it. I also have a full-time regular job, so it's not like I could be streaming like crazy. But it's I want to check stuff out and put it out there just to see if I get more hits or more attention or whatever. But it's always a little pipe dream. So I would wish there was more going on, at least have an audience give me feedback or, riff off of in terms of chatting while playing games online and all that. Also, one thing I noticed, I was going through my YouTube channel and playlists and stuff like that. I like to organize stuff. So I think that's why this is kind of a fun hobby. It's organize stuff and playlists of videos. I realized I used the same number for the podcast title twice. And I just now noticed it. It was back in April, oops. And it's I don't know. I don't really talk too much about the episode number or how many episodes in the podcast, but it would be too tedious to fix it, adjust all the numbers or whatever, or edit that. Sometimes I wish it would have an audience hey, dummy, you did this, or with a title or thumbnail or whatever. So I think even just having any kind of feedback would be kind of nice. I think I know people talk about doing content creation, whether it's streaming YouTube videos or whatever, and have a thick skin, but I think I do. And a lot of stuff I just don't. As you get older, I start caring too much about, but just some silly thing I noticed just now, but it was back in April, oops, but oh well, not too many people care. So last podcast I was talking about food deliveries and stuff like that. And I realized I'm pretty sure I forgot to mention something that was something I wanted to talk about as well when it comes to that. And that's when it comes to reviewing your food delivery or other stuff like your Uber driver and things like that. I feel like some people are maybe too, I don't know if too cautious is a word, but when there's people always give them 5 stars and if they did a bad job they just don't rate them. Or people have this guilty or overthink it or whatever you want to call it. They feel they don't want to give somebody a bad review because they can have a bad day and stuff like that. I don't want to give them a bad review and get them fired and stuff like that. That's what I want to talk about a little bit more because in my experience, I haven't worked those kind of jobs. I worked inbound call center before. But if someone's going to get one bad review, they're not going to lose their job. They're not going to get fired. And I don't mean be overcritical, oh, they've got extra napkins, give them 1 star, or you were they're 5 minutes late, or they got a little bit lost with the Uber driver. I say don't be overcritical, but I think don't be afraid to give a bad review, or at least maybe neutral to negative and all that. I know this is a funny. Have you ever seen a show on Comedy Central? Corporate did a funny episode about giving reviews and anything less than a 5 or 10, whatever. Anything less than the perfect score is considered failing. But I also feel that's kind of toxic too. I don't know. It's kind of shitty because a lot of stuff is again being on that side of getting reviewed by customers. A lot of stuff out of your hands, out of your control. There's no way you can always have a perfect situation every time. But I would say like even giving neutral to negative experience, like if they really mess up your food order, and I know there's like obvious stuff to report, like if they just didn't deliver or they just didn't come and stuff like that. Report that. You know, of course, there's always like serious stuff too. Like it, out of, I haven't like dived too much into it, but like sometimes you hear occasionally like some crazy trending story, like an Uber driver like assaulting somebody, or mugging somebody, or robbing a place and stuff like that. So there's like really criminal stuff that could happen, and I don't want to say, like be paranoid of everyone who delivers stuff to your house or knows where you live because they picked you up or whatever from Uber. I had some crazy stuff, but basically, I just my point is like don't be afraid to give a bad review. Like don't be overcritical, but if you have really shitty experience, I think it's worth noting that or like giving that feedback. Because let's say you don't, and the next person has shitty experience, and they don't get feedback, and then the next person's like, "Oh, I don't want to give a negative review." It keeps going and going, and that employee, that driver, delivery, whatever, is still going to do a crappy job to a bunch of people, but no one's going to say anything because they're too afraid of, they're doing a bad job. I don't want to get in trouble. But again, I'm not sure how much like Uber or Uber Eats or DoorDash or Grubhub works. But in my experience, like you would really have to be fucking up if bad reviews get you fired. And working in the call center, like it could be a little competitive too. It's like comparing apples to oranges. But I remember in the call center, like they do like monthly, like I guess it's kind of competitive, but they have like monthly like top performers in terms of like reviews and calls being graded and stuff like that. So it'd be like on the top 10%, you get a special lunch and stuff like that. It had like little activities. I got a coffee maker as a prize from one of these activities. I think once or twice. It's like, free food, and you get a little time off of work, off the phone since it was a call center. And then sometimes you get these like negative or neutral reviews that just like drag down your score, but it's not like going to get you fired or in trouble or anything like that. Like again, you have to, at least in the place I worked at, you had to be like, I think less than top 10% in your department. Like if it's like 2 or 3 months in a row, then it gets like in trouble. Like you have these discussions or possible like write-ups or coaching or whatever. My main point is like don't be afraid to give a bad review, even if it's like a little bit neutral. Like if people like obviously mess up, because you even hear things like with DoorDash or Uber Eats, like, hey, I live in an apartment, deliver it to my door, and then they don't, like they deliver it in for an office or stuff like that. Because you don't know, what if the person ordering food has a disability or they got injured and have some mobility issues temporarily, and they're like, hey, I need that food delivered to my door because, especially if I'm going on my way to request that, and then they don't, or like, I don't want to go upstairs and get confused or lost or whatever, or, I don't want to spend too much time finding your apartment and stuff like that. So definitely call that out, but don't be overcritical. Don't be like a Karen about it or a grumpy old man about it, whatever. But that's my main like TED Talk thing about it is like, hey, give people these feedback. I guess people I don't know if people are worried about being too sensitive or anything like that, but if you have feedback, even if it's a little bit neutral, a little bit negative, a little bit constructive, I say give it and all that. And then sometimes, even if it's like no big deal, 5 stars, like I do that pretty much all the time with like Uber. As rarely as I take Uber or Lyft, I get 5 stars. Like, unless because usually I have like short trips, so it's like point A to point B, fine. I'll give them 5 stars unless it was like harassing me with like discussing, like talking about like religion or something like that, like really aggressively, or a rarely careless driver. Like even if it's like you don't get in a car accident, but it's very like, ooh, they're speeding a lot or stuff like that. You don't provide that feedback. You don't know if it might help somebody. Again, it's not going to like, I'm not sure, again, how critical those companies are. But in my experience, you have to like really be fucking up for bad reviews to get you fired. But that's pretty much the points I wanted to make. Another thing I wanted to talk about is occasionally I'll get like these DMs from artists or people who do commissions for like artwork and want to do like channel or whatever, like for videos or banners or whatever artwork. And I always feel weird about that because it's like unsolicited. And sometimes I think, sometimes I put it like in their Twitter handle or Twitter name description, whatever, like they doing commissions and stuff like that, or a little description about them. Because one of my my biggest pet peeve is when someone's like, "Hi there," or "Hi, how are you?" Like, if you're gonna slide into my DMs and you maybe want to sell yourself, or do intro, just put it out there. Don't like bait a conversation, because if you bait a conversation with small talk, I am not taking that bait, no matter what. It's just how I am. It's just like one of my pet peeves and frustration. But sometimes I get people like, "Hey, I do channel honor and stuff like that." And think about it, like I can respect the hustle. I can respect, want to get more work or make more contacts or whatever. But it just feels really weird and awkward to me, because like they don't interact with my other tweets. Maybe they see like, "Hey, I'm streaming," or "Hey, I posted this video," or "Hey, I posted this," and they're like, "Oh, that person does stuff online, whether it be streaming or content creation. Let me slide into your DMs and maybe show them some business." I mean, it just feels like that's your motivation versus like being actually interested in what I'm doing. And that, because I feel like if I do you want to do that, I'm very tempted at times, like to look into getting channel art or something to make it more of a bigger tier, not like too flashy. But I feel like right now YouTube is just a hobby. Like, I feel like I don't want to dump, because I don't want people to like do assets or artwork for free. And I feel like if I'm going to pay them decent, it's like I don't want to invest in that right now, just because it doesn't feel like something worth investing to, I guess, if that makes sense. Basically, like it feels awkward when people like DM me. It's very, very infrequent, but it just feels weird, because sometimes I look at their profile pic, or I just not feeling it. In a sense, so it's like I read like someone who like maybe checks in a few streams and chats, or like puts a few comments in a video, like actually shows some interest in what I'm doing, versus like, "Hey, do you want me to make channel art for you?" It just, I don't know. And I don't want to say like, "Hey, do that so you can, do A, B, and C so you can profit with last step," or whatever, if that makes sense. But I feel like if people who are looking to get more work in terms of doing artwork, like I feel like just sliding someone's DM is, I don't know. I don't think it's like the worst thing, but it just feels really weird and awkward. It's like I don't even want to like message back, because it's like, I don't know. Do you really care about my channel, my whatever online presence, or you just want to make some artwork? So I feel like if someone had more of a connection, like, yeah, and checking with streams, checking with channel, like replying to tweets, and kind of like showing more interest in me as a person, at least what I'm doing online, then I'll be like, "Hey, you know what? I like the work. I'm feeling it. Maybe I do want to bite the bullet and commission artwork, but right now it doesn't feel like something I want to invest in." I don't know if anyone else feels that way, especially as people who do like really small tuber or small streamers, stuff like that. But I always feel weird when I get those like unsolicited, like, "Hey, I do artwork and channel work and all that. Hit me up." And I was like, I don't really care about that at the moment. I can, again, respect the hustle, but I always feel awkward when I get those messages and all that. I pretty much don't reply to them. I don't know if that makes me like a dick or an asshole about it, but oh well. The next thing I want to talk about is I had a weird dream last night, and I just have to talk about it just to get it out there, get it recorded. All that. I feel like lately, like in the past year, I'm not sure what it is, but I feel like I have more dreams. And since I just remember having a dream versus like, "Hey, I slept," versus, "Hey, I had a dream about this." Because a lot of times my dreams are based in real life or whatever, so not really like memorable. But this was really weird. I think I was like taking a nap, and it was like in the middle of the day, and I noticed like some noise going on, and I go into the kitchen, and there's like this crazy creature running around, and it's basically a big rat, but it's not just like a big rat. It's like all bloated and weird looking. Like, and again, when I say a big rat, like, I guess in my dream, like I can't really, like measure stuff or like all that, but it looked like the size of a medium dog, or like a 30-pound dog. I think my best guess is like it was similar to like a size of a corgi or adult corgi. So there's like real rat running around, and it had like a weird bloating, like it was really like misshapen, like a weird head, kind of like patchy fur. It kind of reminded me like some of those rat creatures from Fallout 3 or something like that. Like one thing, like one of the part of front leg was missing and stuff like that. So it's like some weird bloated weird rat, and it freaked me the hell out. But then the thing about this rat, it was like acting like a dog, like it was acting playful, even like trying to jump up and trying to lick me. That sounds really weird. Like it had like a friendly, like a playful dog, and like holy shit, like then like my mind's like racing, thinking like, what do I do to have? It's like a pest or something to have to kill it or whatever. Like it doesn't seem like harmful trying to like bite or be crazy, but it was like making little ruckus and stuff like that. Like, you know what? I just have to get rid of it. And I was like racing in my head, like, what would I do? Like, I didn't even like investigate like how I got into my apartment, but it's like, okay, I gotta get rid of this. I maybe want to be a little discreet or at least like have control of the situation because this guy's acting a little crazy. So like, you know, I get one of my recycle bins, like take out the bag of recycling, use a can. So I put the giant rat-like creature in the recycling bin, the can I have in my apartment. Like, you know what? I'm gonna move this into my car, find like some place where I can just like dump this creature out, like maybe at the park or something like that. So, like, no, I'm just gonna dump it so it's not my problem. Maybe not the best thing to do. Like in hindsight, I think what I would have done, at least thinking back on it, like probably took pictures and called like animal control or something like that. But my mind, like, I gotta get rid of this creature because I also have like 2 dogs too. So like, okay, I got in recycle bin, closing the lid, all that. So like, I'm like trying to drag it out to my car and all that. And then like the rat like busts out of the bin and starts like running around my neighborhood, like scaring kids and adults. Like, what the hell is that? But that's kind of where the dream ends. Like, I didn't really get any further, but I just remember like having this weird bloated rat creature thingy. And I'm not sure if it's like infected or radiated or I have no idea. But I just remember acting very playful and dog-like and trying to like get out of my place and maybe dropping off far away. But it's like bust down chasing everyone in the neighborhood. So maybe I figure like, I don't know. It's like one of those things with your dreams. I don't remember like every moment of it. Maybe I was like, oops, well, not my problem anymore. Just went back to my apartment because I don't remember like trying to chase it down and like taking responsibility for this weird rat creature. But yeah, just kind of a crazy dream I had. So some other things I want to talk about this podcast, a little work related. Like I don't want to talk too much like where I work or stuff like that. It's kind of a big company too. But one thing I wanted to mention is that my work has this like online portal where people can like, it's kind of like a suggestion or complaint box, like the voice of the employee or whatever you want to call it. But people can like post, like make a little post, and then people will like respond to it, like higher ups who like manage that stuff. Like, hey, like there's an issue with the break area. Like, here's a suggestion for like the processes or facilities and stuff like that. I feel like some people can be like very petty, or I don't know. It just feels like almost like a toxic kind of situation. Like I know how people complain about Twitter being bad at times. It kind of reminds me of that a little bit. Like people complain, but sometimes I think it's weird. Like people like act like it's like live tweeting back and forth, but no, you're making a post. Someone eventually gets to it, responds to it, and all that. And then you see like stuff with all caps, and you see like another like post from them like following up. And it was like some stuff too, like complain, like saying like this favoritism and stuff like that in terms of like promotion or advancement opportunities, which I feel like, you know, if that's true, that's pretty shitty. Again, I don't know like every aspect that happens around work. And somebody gets like these posts that can be like overly complainy and bitchy and stuff like that. And something like, no, I think the best thing is to describe it as like a lack of professionalism. Because when I was working the call center, I got to the point where I did to click to chat, and one of my like hated messages with people being like impatient, like, "Are you there?" All caps, because sometimes there's a wait queue, sometimes you have to research your account or research stuff. So you get these like bombarded with messages of people being like overly grumpy and bitchy, and you see that kind of on the work portal and all that. And I feel like, I don't know, I think if you do that, you know, always try to be professional, like realize, hey, this is just text, but also people are, I don't know. Like, I feel like if you're too complaining, too toxic, like, it's gonna be remembered, like, I know it's like, you know, if there's issue with favoritism, that's one thing, but then if you act like this kind of, I don't know, like, grumpy or bitchy person, people are like, you know what, maybe don't want to promote them, or, like, I don't know. Maybe that's kind of wrong to say, or whatever. But yeah, I always feel like if I was in a higher up and I came on Sunday as a employee, like making all these bitchy or petty or like little posts, like I only feel like when to promote them to like a manager or like a higher up and stuff like that. So I don't know the whole like rat race and climbing the ladder at work, but just like a 2 cents about that. And then another thing when I complain about work, and I just talked about like complaining and stuff like that. And again, don't want to get too much specific details of like what I do, who I work for, or whatever. But one annoying thing is that they've been changing the policies. Like during the pandemic and stuff like that, we used to have staggered breaks and even staggered start times. So like everyone's clocking in at the same time, not everyone's having break, not everyone's having lunch at the same time, to kind of help with like social distancing and stuff like that too. Now they kind of backpedaled on that, and now everyone has the same break schedule, the same lunch schedule, all that. A lot of people complain about that, and I just find it annoying because I don't know, it feels like it's taking steps backwards. Because I feel like during the pandemic, that was very important to keep people apart and stuff like that. They even like put more seating, so now the lunchroom is more crowded, and everyone's having lunch at the same time. And yeah, it's pretty annoying. Like again, I feel like it's taking a step backwards because like even though I guess you could say we're post-COVID and all that. I haven't paid too much attention, but it feels like things are back to quote-unquote normal. All that, but it's like, contagious diseases still exist, and flu season still is a thing. So I feel like, this is just counterproductive and, again, taking steps backwards and all that. And what can you do? Like, part of me feels like some of the motives is like, hey, want everyone to have break and lunch at the same time, because I know we had like some issues with people taking longer breaks or extra breaks and stuff like that. So it kind of helps the upper management like keep track of who's taking extra breaks, so they kind of get on them and stuff like that. What you could do if there's staggered breaks, but sometimes it's a little bit harder if like there's 3 different break times, like which employees is actually taking the break when they're supposed to or whatever. So I feel like maybe that's part of it, is that they have the motives. Other things too, again, don't want to get too specific about it. But yeah, kind of like, what, we should have the staggered time because, like, hey, germs still exist, diseases still exist, the flu, whatever, still exists. So, why backpedal? Like, I guess a good thing about, not a good thing, but a good metaphor I thought of about it is like, when cars became a thing and stuff like that, and when it's driving, and cars didn't come with seatbelts, and then all of a sudden we get seatbelts. Like, I'm sure because, like, all these car accidents and all these, like, fatalities or injuries based in car accidents, like, hey, these seatbelts are helping to keep people safe, to avoid fatalities in a lot of situations, stuff like that. So if someone's like, hey, we came up with these seatbelts so less people getting killed or injured in car accidents, and then it's like saying, you know what, since there's less fatalities, let's hold off on the seatbelts. You're like, yeah. Like, no, like if you learn stuff, like, I remember like hearing like in Let's Plays or podcasts, or whatever, like things are gonna be the new normal. Like we're not gonna go back completely to pre-COVID. Like, and I'm not saying like everyone should wear a mask and drench yourself in sanitizer all the time, but it did form some good habits. And it's like, hey, diseases are still a thing and things like that. So it just feels like a little frustrating. I'm not sure if other companies are doing that as well. It's like, have seating and stuff like that, actually sit down in a restaurant and actually go to a restaurant versus just doing pickup or delivery. So it's nice that things are getting more normal, but I feel like there's a lot of stuff we learned and should still apply. And it just feels a little disappointing, almost like frustrating and all that. And one thing, my little rant when it comes to these kind of things too, which I think to me, caused some issues with the pandemic, but I think with like flu season and all, is that like a lot of these workers don't have livable wages, they don't have benefits, especially like sick pay and stuff like that. Like they can't save up for a rainy day. If they need to take time off, they may even get fired or just get no paid. And it's one of the things like, I know like it's like a sitcom or like cartoon or whatever situation, like, oh, I can't get sick, I can't be sick because I have a big presentation, I have a big meeting and all that, are working on these projects. But people who like work in the food industry or work like minimum wage, if that, like, hey, if I don't go to work, I'm not going to get money that I need to pay bills, to pay rent. Like, it's not that I can't be sick, it's like I can't afford to miss work, miss hours. And I think that's what causes a lot of issues with like with flu seasons or diseases spreading in general. Is like people like, hey, it's kind of a shitty thing to do to like expose people to if I'm had the flu or a disease or something. But like, hey, they're not going to care if I am late on bills. They don't care if I'm late on rent. Like sometimes you hear like, oh, the person making my coffee or the person making my sandwich, I don't want to pay that much, and then my stuff would get more expensive. But then that person making your sandwich is sick, and then they get you sick, and then you get your kids sick, you get your family sick, and then they get their friends sick. It's like that's how diseases spread. And if there's more benefits like ensuring there's sick pay, ensuring that there's a livable wage, even more than that, so they can save up. I think that happens a lot. I can't speak for like everyone in a country, but I feel like people get in a situation like, hey, I cannot miss the ship. I cannot afford it. Like I'm living paycheck to paycheck, and yeah, I feel like shit, and maybe have the flu or a cold or something. But I rather push myself, even at the risk of others, because they're not going to help me out when I miss a paycheck or miss a day or two or even a week's worth of work. So I just think like when it comes to people who work in those industries is like have livable wages, have those benefits to help them out. I always find like during the height of the pandemic, like, oh, these are heroes of food workers or grocery store workers, and like, hey, they're still getting paid pretty shitty, not getting the benefits. But that's just my little soapbox conversation, all that. So some other things I want to talk about too is I know it's a little old, but I did want to talk about the direct about the update with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Looking forward to that. It looks pretty cool. I know like one of the big things is like it's a little bit more open world. Like they mentioned there's like 3 different like story arcs or whatever that you can do whatever you want, like approach them any way you want. I'm not sure exactly what they're gonna be because one's like the obvious like get the gym badges in the Pokemon League. And I think the second one is like a more of a story. Like have a lot of games like even though you're doing the whole getting the badge journeys in Pokemon League, like other stuff going on, like versus like, hey, you had to fight Team Rocket or Team Aqua or Team Magma or Team Galactic and stuff like that. So there's like that somewhat of a story for us, but it's like something else too. So kind of excited to see how that is like. I know one of the big things too, because it seems like the legendary Pokemon, at least the one on the box art of the 2 games, because I think ever since Gen 2, the box art Pokemon have always been legendaries, so I assume those are legendaries as well. But hey, you can use them as a bike, travel, water, fly, and stuff like that. So it's like your vehicle, your transportation. I feel like it's a big part of your journey. So it's like, is it going to give it to you early? I assume that's like a Pokemon you use in battle. I'm pretty sure that I can't imagine to do that. Like, hey, this is the Pokemon in box art. It is used for transportation. Like you can't actually use it like that. But it seems like it implies that you get it early. So it's like, is it going to give you legendary Pokemon early in your journey? Or what? Or is it going to be a thing like, hey, you can use it for transportation, but you can't use it for battle yet because there's going to be some story events or something like that. That'd be really interesting to see because it just feels like the legendaries always to me have been like late game kind of like events, like, oh, it's building up to that, but it feels like you're going to get that sooner, at least with Pokemon they portray in the box art. So it'll be cool to see. And one thing I want to mention, I know the new gimmick for this one, because I forget what gen it started, like when it had like the Mega Evolutions, and then it had the Z moves, and then Dynamax and the Sword and Shield. They have something called Terracizing, or I forget. I'm pretty bad at spelling it as well. But I know people like, ooh, that looks really cool. Like people like gushing over the mechanic, but it looks neat. The one thing I just don't like about it is that these Pokemon gets these stupid ornaments on the head, or like something like that. Like it's either like flowers or candelabra or balloons or a fountain and stuff like that. So I kind of wish they didn't put the stupid things on the head. Like I think the crystal like exterior looks cool on the Pokemon, but I think it's just like way to like boost the moves or boost specials and stuff like that. And I feel like people like really like narked or complain about Dynamax being stupid, but I really like that as well. Especially made raids feel bigger. So I did like Dynamax, or like the Gigantamax, but I gave them a different form and a special move and stuff like that. So I'm not too sold on the new mechanic, new gimmick of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I didn't think too much, but I'm not sure if other people complain or feel the way. But I wish they would make it a little bit different. At least get away with the stupid ornaments on the head. Because I get it. Like sometimes, like you mentioned like, oh, the Pikachu can have like flying moves, or like the Eevees can have special elements, but I don't know, it just feels kind of stupid to me. So one last thing I want to talk about, this is kind of older news too, but talk about Nickelodeon NFTs. Like, I came across this, I do subscribe to Saber Sparks channel. A great channel, by the way, when it comes to commentary to like cartoons and animation and stuff like that. She did a really good video about that, but I guess Nickelodeon is doing NFTs now, and it's like really weird because it's like a kids thing, so you're like not selling these to kids, especially with like the ridiculous cost of quote unquote cost of these NFTs, or value, whatever the hell you want to call it. But I guess right now it's just NFTs based on cartoons Rugrats and Hey Arnold, which are kind of like 90s, early 2000 shows, and it's like maybe it's kind of like hit the nostalgia bone, or whatever you want to call it. So it seems like trying to be nostalgic to like older people who could afford this stuff. And like that, they also do like these mashups, which look horrible. Like they mash up Rugrats characters with Hey Arnold character, and I made a joke like it looks like they did the Dragon Ball Z fusion dance but failed miserably. So these like really ugly ones. Like check out the Sable Spark video for some example, because he does a bit where he reacts to some of them. But it's like, it's crazy. Like, because I've been hearing like NFT, and I'm not sure if it's all cryptocurrency, but it's kind of like crashing and all that. And to me, it just seems so bizarre. Like with NFTs in general, just because it just seems the quality is so subpar. I don't see the value of just having an image. And like you had the joke that you can screenshot it, you can like right click and save as or whatever. Like I don't see the point like spending thousands, if not $100,000 on a stupid picture, even if it's animated or not. To me, it just seems like a scam. But also, like, it's kind of weird hearing like, you know, like tweets or replies or comments. Like these people just seem like they're brainwashed or something like that. Like I always feel like it's like you're talking to a psychopath or something when it comes to these like NFT bros or whatever. But yeah, because it feels like they're trying to scam it onto someone else, and that's why they like defend them no matter what and give them the biggest praise. And like look at the NFTs, you look at the product, because I know there's like Saber Spark. He does a couple good videos. I do recommend checking those out, because he talked about the one about the Kevin Hart series for Roku. A Roku original was like promoting NFTs, and it seemed crazy. I always feel like someone just trying to like scam somebody. It's like a curse or something like that, like a supernatural curse, and the only way to get rid of it is to pass it on to someone else. And that's what they want to do, is pass it on to someone else. So they'd be like, oh, this was a shitty investment, or this was a really bad decision. But I really don't get NFTs. And it's just disappointing with a company like, as a kid, you know, always watch Nickelodeon cartoons and stuff like that. I don't think any of the recent stuff I've been crazy about either. Usually it's been Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, or Disney. But it's like more animated stuff. But I don't know, Nickelodeon has been off the radar, but this is like, it's just really disappointing, and it suck a lot just to see like all that. And it's so weird. Like I feel like it's almost at the point that some companies should just like backpedal when it comes to like certain artists or companies. We're like, oh, we're going to put these in our video games, or we're going to do this based off our cartoons, and now it's like, So I don't know. I'm not sure if that's going to, you know, backpedal and like kind of repair the reputation or not, because I know that Square Enix had a lot of issues with that too, or Ubisoft as well. But yeah, it's just crazy that these Nickelodeon NFTs exist in the first place. I'm not sure if it's going to be more of a thing or crash and burn. But yeah, a lot of them just look ugly and awful as well, like with the mashup, or just like stupid and pointless. But that's my 2 cents on that. So that's going to wrap it for the podcast this week. I'm pretty sure I'm going to take go back to a hiatus or break, just because I just feel like I had more stuff to talk about this week. And sometimes it just feels like a chore. I think a good metaphor I use is like making a big dinner for friends, but then none of your friends show up. But you have all this great food, and you still get something out of it. So even if I don't get much of an audience, who knows? Like sometimes I might talk about something that like hits a good spot, and people are like, oh, I appreciate that opinion, or hey, that's aligned with these opinions or ideas, or hey, let's check this guy out. I don't know. It's kind of weird doing a podcast by yourself. As much as I stumble my words and stutter, all that, it's like, I think it kind of helps me become a better speaker and articulate. Bad example, but yeah, it just kind of feels like, hey, I get, no matter what happens, I get something out of it, or else I would just completely not do it at all. But we'll see. So I'm probably gonna take an extended break, but I'm still gonna stream regularly, and you'll upload those VODs to the YouTube channel. I have other ideas for videos as well that I'm kind of excited about, like doing more of an effort. And another thing I said before in the past, like one of the mantras is like it's just throwing spaghetti at the walls. So some things I'm excited to see upload and publish, and it's also one of the things, like, as much as content I upload anyways, whether it be stream VODs or this and that, I like to want to like have videos every day. It'd be too overbearing and off-putting for people, like, hey, because it feels like, I don't know, like some things may appeal to some people, some don't. So like, oh, let me check this guy out and go, I'm just gonna unsubscribe because I see all these other videos in my subscribe feed or whatever. But I appreciate any comments and feedback, or just hang out on a stream. Follow my Twitter if you think I said something funny. Comment back or stuff like that. Just more interaction would be pretty cool. But whatever, I'm just doing my stuff on the internet. So thanks for checking in and listening, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.